Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shula, you can take a seat for a moment. So we just read Parshat Bereshit, first Parsha in our Torah, which is very exciting. And I wanted to talk today about the first people that were ever named in the Torah. And I'm just going to give you a little preview that this isn't going to be a sermon, it's going to be learning. So get ready to talk to your friends. And this teaching is based on a teaching from Pardes teacher Judy Klitzner, who was here with us last year. I think some of you were here with us. She's very fun. Okay, so let's take out our Eitz Chaim Chumashim, the larger red, darker red books, and turn to page 24. So before in the Parsha, we have the creation of both Adam and Eve, which are our first two humans in the Torah, but those two creations sort of, we know, came from God, that they were fashioned out of the earth. So the first time that humans were actually born in our Torah or in our world is the birth of Eve's sons, Cain and Abel. And we're not going to talk about some of the devastating things that happen with Cain and Abel, but we're sort of going to talk about what happens at their creation. And I want to explore the question throughout our learning together is, did Eve have some sort of purpose in naming her sons Cain and Abel? And so we're going to explore that question. So we're going to start with Bereshit chapter 4, verse 1 that I'm going to read to you in both English and Hebrew. והאדם ידע את חווה אשתו, וטהר ותלד את קין, ותאמר, קניתי איש את אדוני. Now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gained a male child with the help of the Lord. So let's sort of dive into that verse. First, I want you to turn to your friend next to you, your chavruta, who will become, if they're not your friend yet, will become your friend as we begin to talk and learn together. What is weird about this verse? Now, the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gained a male child with the help of the Lord. So go ahead and talk to your friend. What is weird about this verse? Okay, so let's get some ideas. I think that there are some like low level, we can just identify weird things, but then I'm counting on Francis to tell us what the weird grammatical thing is about this verse, all right? Maybe. Okay, no. All right, what's weird about the verse? Anyone? Yes, Lou. Who's the man? Right, okay, so we have a mysterious man, so who could the man be? It could be Adam, and it could be, well, it could be God. Pretty much, it's a little off, but could be. Okay, what else is weird about the verse? Oh, you want to say more? Say that again? I can't hear you. Is that immaculate? Immaculate, I don't know, we'll see. Okay, anybody else? Yeah, Uri. Exactly. So there are some. So if you've participated in some of these learnings before, or you've participated in Torah study in general, there are some general mechanics about sentences of the Torah that are totally off here. So one is that usually we have somebody named, like this person is named Cain. This person is named Avram, but here we just have she conceived and bore Cain. Not like an official naming. Anybody else raise their hand? Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that generally, when we have a verse of Torah, it begins with the verb first. So previously, when we had verbs, when we had things happening in the Torah in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, we had something like Vayikra ha'adam. The first word is the verb, God called the man, or Vatomer ha'isha, said the woman. But our verse said, the man knew Eve. So it's backward, subject first and then verb. But what's extra weird about this is that this is our first birth of a person. And so why might the Torah have thought, let me switch, or the writer of the Torah, whoever you think created this text for us, why might the Torah break its own pattern here? What might that signify about this first verse? I'm not going to have you answer that because I know it's a tough question, but maybe we'll have some thoughts once I give you what Rashi said. So Rashi says that the reason for the switch is that this conception had already happened in the Garden of Eden. And why is that important? It's extraordinarily important because we might have thought that conception was actually a sin, which is how Christian theologians and also Christian commentators take this verse to think that the birthing of children is a sin. But you agree with that? But what we are learning here, based on Rashi, is that procreation aren't punishments for the sin of Adam and Eve. They're actually part of God's original blessing, and the grammar signifies us for that. So before Adam and Eve were exiled from the Garden of Eden, they had procreated and created their children, which means that the ideal is not to not have children, but the ideal is actually to have children. And that is sort of this signal. But so that's sort of the first weird part of the sentence that we sort of know from this mitzvah of Pura Revu that Judaism privileges having children if you're able to or want to, but that it also comes from this verse that the first person to have children happened before they were punished. So we're going to move to the next part of the sentence, which says that Chava ishto, Eve, this mysterious man's wife. Why do we say it twice? Let's talk to your chavrita. Why might the Torah have this redundant phrase of Chava ishto, saying it twice? Anyone have any ideas? Oh, to let you know who the man is by way of identifying the woman. So this is where I think this verse gets really cool in this reading, which is that Judy Klitzner says that the fact that it only names the wife and not the man is actually giving us this precedent that Eve was the person who named the children, that it actually had nothing to do with the man. The reason why the subject of this verse becomes Eve is because we hadn't really had her as the subject before. When we last saw Eve, which was in Genesis chapter 3, that Eve was like a consequence, right after God's pronouncement of the consequence, and there Adam names Eve. But here we have this like mysterious man who's naming Eve as Ishto, and so it's like both naming this, an equality that Adam and Eve have, but also that she actually has some power and agency in the fact that she is about to name her son. So now we're going to break down what her son is named. It says, Kaniti et ish et Adonai. I have gained a man with the Lord. So I'm going to put it out to you. What other, and this actually has to do with weddings too, what other associations does the word kaniti or kinyan or koneh have in the Torah? What does it usually have? Possession. Nice. So it actually is how we marry each other. If you got married under the traditional auspices of Kiddushin, the man kones the woman. The man acquires the woman. So it's pretty weird here. By the way, I have to have an aside here, which is that if you want to talk about marriage where the man doesn't acquire a woman, you should come read mine and Miles' ketubah, and we're happy to talk about it. Okay. Okay, so this word kaniti, it's usually acquiring or creating something or really getting something back. And the only person who has been named Ish so far in the Torah is Adam. So where it says kaniti Ish et Adonai, we bring back Lou here, who says that the only person who could have created this person is Adam, but the verse is telling us that Eve acquired this man from God, this person that she bore from God, which is weird. It's weird that this could possibly be some sort of immaculate conception, but also maybe it's Eve actually talking. Maybe this is something that Eve is saying, like, I actually did this. I'm claiming some sort of authority and agency in the fact that she did actually birth this child. So we have this kaniti et ish, possibly her saying that she did this. And then we have this whole meaning. She bore Cain, who says, I have gained, which has a meaning, I've gained a male child with the help of the Lord. And then we get the next verse, she then bore his brother Abel. That's it. Nothing else about the fact who Abel is. But for Cain, we have this whole idea. So why might that be? Turn to your partner. Why might we have this whole elucidation of who Cain is, and then we just have Abel show up with no meaning? Okay, so why do we think that Abel doesn't get as much of a description? Yes? What is this row of well, some of you are first children. Think about that. Your first child's a big deal. Yes, Chazan? Elevating motherhood, which my original question was, did Eve have any say? Like, did Eve tell us something in the naming of her child? So we're sanctifying motherhood. Nice. Did anyone else have yeah, Mindy? Nice. So all of this came from God because of the fact that the commentators sort of tell us that it happened. But Abel came after, even though we sort of know them as twins. It's possible. Yeah, I think that this is very ambiguous. Cool. Okay, so, and what do we know happens to Cain and Abel? Who is the one who sort of survives? Cain is the one who survives. And so we see that maybe Eve had some sort of predilection or some sort of idea of what was about to happen, which is pretty painful. I'm only a mother to a dog. I was about to say I'm not a mother myself, but I definitely am a mother to my dog. But it would be very painful I could only imagine if you had this predilection that you were going to lose one child over the other. And this name, Abel or Hevel, sort of has this idea of, we see it in Ecclesiastes, where it's named vanity. The word could also mean vapor or breath or something fleeting or something insubstantial. And so if we read these verses as of Eve having some sort of power in the naming, that she knew that this was going to happen. So she had, like Adam said, some sort of power in her motherhood. She had some sort of power by her naming Cain. She had some sort of power in the structure of the verse. And she also, maybe we can say, knew what was going to happen and signified that within the naming of her son. So hope you enjoyed some cool Torah learning. Happy to chat more about it over Kiddush, and thanks for learning with me. We'll turn